Oh, we're rolling.
Oh, now we're rolling.
Right.
You only did 3 movies this year.
Yeah.
Slow year.
No, I'm not. I'm not working that fast anymore. I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, I did 14 movies in one year. But look, movies have changed. I mean, Rain Man had 30 minutes of music in it. Sherlock's probably got 2 hours of music in it. I try not to count because
Right.
it gets scary.
Is that good or bad, do you think?
It is. It is what it is. It is. Things change. Things. You try to do the appropriate thing for the appropriate subject matter. It was nice in Sherlock to try to find a style that would go with. Robert Downey and it was nice to be able to actually play what was going on sort of in the character's head, so rather than just letting the character do it. I mean, I think actually, quite honestly, I mean, Downey's acting is so extraordinary that I could have stayed out of the way as well and would have been fine. But there was it was just a sense from Guy and me that it was nice to keep things sort of pottering along and remind the audience that they can have a bit of a laugh and be, set a tone and maintain that tone throughout.
At this point, how do you collaborate with the filmmaker? I mean, do you start and then they kind of go, yes, oh master?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, actually, I sort of tell the story, but I think I need to actually explain why I tell the story, which I never do. When Guy first phoned me, he said, I'm shooting this movie, Sherlock Holmes, and my editors have slapped Dark Knight, the score to Dark Knight, all over it, and I don't like it.
Right.
And that was such a great way of getting me interested, because the last thing I wanted is somebody to phone me up and go, well, your Dark Knight score works really well in my movie. Can you do something like that again?
Right.
Because out of many reasons. I mean, Dark Knight was as good as I could do on Dark Knight. That was it. Plus, I feel great loyalty to Chris Nolan. It's, that's his. I wrote it for Chris. And it shouldn't get appropriated to anything else. Plus, it obviously wasn't going to work for Sherlock Holmes because we were going to do Sherlock Holmes, and so it was very liberating to talk to somebody who wanted something different straight away.
So where do you start at that point?
Well, I went. He said, "Well, will I come over to London and have a look at it?" And and eventually I managed to get over to London, and I was very dubious about the whole project, to be really honest. Sherlock Holmes. I grew up with the Sherlock Holmes stories. I had, to me, he's a very cerebral hero, and I'd heard Guy had done all these action-y type things, etc. And I couldn't figure out, for the life of me, how he could go and combine these two very,
Right.
I mean, those worlds just seemed to be so far away from me. And within, of course, 20 seconds, he had me by with that idea of, the previs of you hearing Holmes plan his next move.
Right.
And I thought, oh wow, this is really great, and I know what to do with this. And the other thing is the look of the movie, just the way Guy had designed the whole thing, the grubbiness, the the dirt under the fingernails, let's not be homogenous, let's be outspoken, let's be bold, let's be these things, let's have a point of view about everything, and those are the adventures I love going on.
Right. So there's a certain degree of homage, it feels like, to Morricone in this.
Actually, it's look, Ennio's my hero, so I will never say there isn't homage to Ennio, but really, honestly, if you really want to know the truth, there is far more homage to the Threepenny Opera. There's far more homage to Kurt Weill. There's far more. Threepenny Opera really is out writing about the Victorian times from a very Berlin German point of view. And I grew up with that music. The humbleness of having a banjo. A violin is not a violin suddenly; it's a fiddle. And there's and I wanted to have, in a funny way, an homage to while in America you have music halls, we have pubs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at every street corner you pass, there will be a pub, and there'll be somebody playing an out-of-tune piano, or there'll be somebody playing the fiddle, or somebody playing the banjo. So, you know, the streets are alive with the sound of racket, not music, you know?
Well, it feels like the world. It feels like,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it's specific to British. It doesn't
No.
feel American. It doesn't, kind of
No.
feels like a world sound.
You know, and you know, look, I know London. I know London like the back of my hand. I know London better than I'm German. I know London better than any German town. I know London better than Los Angeles. You know, I know, you know, I can, you know, I know Billingsgate Fish Market at 5 o'clock in the morning. I know the Thames up and down. So, you know, I knew what to look for. And you know, it's even then it was an incredibly international city.
Yeah.
And you know, okay, all that left aside, you know, when Guy and I started talking about what music we like, because that's really the starting off point. So what do you like? You know, we were talking about the Pogues, we were talking about gypsy music, we were talking about those sort of things. And as we were talking, I was thinking about, you know, friends of mine, musician friends of mine, who could actually play this sort of music. And I thought, what would be really interesting is to actually go and get a collection of soloists, get, you know, find, you know, people I've worked with in the past, or people who I just knew by reputation, get them in and leave the orchestra, leave the idea of the orchestra just off the table for the longest time, and really approach it from a virtuoistic point of view, because I think part of what happens with Holmes is, I mean, that's how his brain works. You know, there's virtuosity going on. He's, you know, we all know he's a violinist, and but we've always been led to assume that what he would play is Bach, or you know, I suppose he could play Elgar, whatever. You know, that he'll play nice, tidy, beautiful classical music.
Right.
But in a funny way, the way the synapses are firing within that mind, and I do think he's a manic depressive. You know, I do think there is madness there. You know, and I think if he were to play for himself, you know, and I'm talking sort of autobiographically, I suppose, it wouldn't necessarily be a beautiful noise.
Right.
It would be, you know, there'd be anger there. But at the same time, there'd be great virtuosity.
So does that take on the character come from reading the script, or from watching the movie when it's closer to completed, or performance?
Well, look, the interesting thing is I've never gotten onto a movie as late as I got onto Holmes. I'm usually there before they start shooting, you know, and I've usually had all those conversations with the director.
Right.
This was the first time I actually got, Guy says I'm the first person who saw the movie, and that's probably true, but it was, you know, it was a movie to be seen. It was, you know, from top to tail,
Right.
it was that movie. And really, in a funny way, the things that stood out to me, you know, were the performances of Holmes and Watson,
Right.
and the friendship between the two of them.
So a better way of doing it, or different, just different, or?
I had a little catching up to do, which I didn't. It doesn't make any difference. I'm
Right.
a procrastinator. I just had less time to procrastinate, you know. And my original brief from Warner Brothers was, you know, this was like end of May. I should have the movie finished on the 1st of August. And then I looked at the release date, and it said Christmas, and I'm going, what are you guys talking about?
Right.
There's lots of time to procrastinate here. But I didn't procrastinate. I mean, look, I worked really hard. I worked really. I mean, you know, nobody is telling me I have to. You know, I would get home at 7, 8 in the morning on a regular basis. I didn't have a single day off until the Sunday after Thanksgiving, when we actually put the baby to bed, as it were.
That's a lot of procrastination from August 1st.
Well, it's experiments. You know. You know, this is sort of a laboratory, you know, and as long as we can keep the laboratory open, you know, the better. The longer we can say it's not finished, the possibility of something great happening exists, you know.
So when's the first time you laid down a track on top of the movie and decided to change it?
Actually, the first thing I really did was that opening, not the very opening, but the carriage ride, etc.,
Right.
and through that whole sort of the catacombs underneath London. So I knew what my dark tone was going to be. What I didn't really know, and what I was